Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is My Hero Academia, Volume 1, by Kohei Horikoshi. Man, sometimes these Japanese names get me. But anyway, this is Shonen Jump Comics, printed by Viz. And this is, for lack of a better term, definitely what we would consider popular. I think, especially among those that are really just getting into anime or manga in the last 5 years or so, My Hero Academia is definitely at the top of the game in terms of popularity right now. You could probably argue Demon Slayer is another good one too going on, but My Hero Academia has had quite a bit of legs on it for the last 5 or 6 years. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the first part of this. Surprise, surprise, it's a 55-page opening chapter. That sounds pretty familiar. I wonder what else had a 55-page... What about... How about... I kid. But it is kind of fascinating to notice that My Hero Academia uses almost the exact same structure as One Piece, Bleach, and Naruto to accomplish its opener. 56 page opening book. Very, very good opening, by the way. You get through, and it starts with sort of a flashback to childhood, and now we jump to sort of modern day. And what I always like about a lot of these mangas is, generally speaking, they don't mind sacrificing, because the expectation in manga is much higher page counts than comic books, right? In comic books, you only have 24 pages. So one of the weaknesses of only having 24 pages is you can't do this. So in manga, they have no problem sacrificing an entire page just to get the exposition out of the way. Now, to be fair, this is fantastic. It only takes you 4 pages or 5 panels to really put the world of My Hero Academia in place for the reader, and then everything else kind of just builds on itself as you go forward. So here's Izuku Midoriya, age 14, so also called Deku in the book. And essentially the premise of the book is the world is 85% superhumans, right? 80% of the world has superpowers, and it's people like Deku who are quote-unquote quirkless, who are sort of the strange ones and the oddballs in the world. But despite his not having a quirk, and they kind of go over it right here with his dreams, right? He idolizes this hero, All Might, and he finds out the hard way that, unfortunately, due to genetic disorder, he doesn't have a quirk. So he has no superpower. Ergo, logically speaking, to society at whole, he can't become a superhero. At least according to, the doctor that diagnosed him and his mom, right? So he doesn't give up, though. He keeps going at it, and one day he runs into a villainous monster, and he gets to meet his hero, All Might. I like how Kohei draws All Might in almost the American style. It really makes him stand out. And one of the cool things about this character, All Might, is if you kind of look at the way his proportions are done, he is actually, if you measure it out, he's about 9 to 10 heads tall. So very good design by Kohei. He gives him very superhero proportions, since this is essentially a superhero manga, not a superhero comic. And all in all, he finds sort of the reality. He learns about the reality of being a superhero, the sacrifices superheroes have to do, and his idol basically tells him, hey, you need to be realistic about your own capabilities, etc., etc. Great gut punch and setback for the hero, but some dramatic circumstances hit one of his friends, classmates, etc., in danger, and he jumps into action despite the fact that he has no powers, and he's probably going to get killed. This kind of inspires his hero, All Might, who kind of was having health issues and couldn't deal with it, to jump into action, and it leads to probably one of the more iconic scenes in this series, which is why the opening chapter of this series is so great. It's just the complete turnaround and I would say, complete story that you get in this first chapter of My Hero Academia. And that the realization that regardless of his inability to have quirks or superpowers, he can still be a hero, which is true, right? This is great for any kind of reader that's getting into it. This is kind of the peak of what shonen manga, young boys sort of fiction is all about. It's about inspiring you to believe in being able to do things more than what you can, right? You'll notice, so My Hero Academia, that's one thing, but even in One Piece, right, we kind of went through this many moons ago. Luffy starts off with no powers. He gains powers, but he's still not powerful, but through some traumatic events, he learns how to grow and become stronger and more powerful at the end of the chapter. In Bleach, Ichigo has the ability to see ghosts, but doesn't really understand the afterworld and any of that other stuff. By the end of it, through his experience working with the Soul Reaper, he gains the powers of a Soul Reaper and is able to save his family, right? And Naruto, right? Naruto is kind of a troublemaker, but he has a kind of dangerous and tragic sort of origin, holding the Nine-Tails demon in his body, right? And through and he always feels outcast despite this, and he's always having trouble in school because of his upbringing. But by the end of the story, he finds out that he is accepted despite his origin, and he learns to overcome some of his difficulties with some of the techniques that he did in order to save, quote unquote, his family, his teacher at the time, right? You notice how all three of these, and I have to bring these up because it's almost silly to not review My Hero Academia and mention those three books. Because they all have extremely similar structure, and despite the fact that they're very, very close to each other, almost to the point of stealing from each other, not saying that that's how it is, but all three of these and My Hero Academia are extremely financially successful. All of these books have sold unbelievable amounts, crazy amounts. And it's not hard to see why they sold so much. For one thing, One Piece, there's a bajillion volumes, but even for Naruto and Bleach, right? Bleach and Naruto are both over. They're still selling to this day because they're great. My Hero Academia is still going on, and it's selling like bonkers. I imagine in the same time span, it will catch up to those other three or be within the same ballpark as the other three. But it just goes to show you, understanding good structure, understanding what the human soul and what people desire in a story and in a character to root for. It's just, this book is just another example of where the Japanese kind of get it in terms of what the format really requires and what you need to accomplish in your storytelling in order to really get people hooked on your book, right? Anyway, I kind of blathered on enough about My Hero Academia. So the art this week, I decided to take a break from sequential art and do some inking. I haven't inked in quite a while. I didn't want to make sure I was forgetting stuff, and I was definitely rusty when I did this. This is actually my first time using a brush pen. You can't see it because I did a lot of outlining, but I've been working with a brush pen more often. I kind of find it fun. And what I decided to do here is kind of showcase basically design, right? Like the Japanese manga style. So obvious thing when you note about this is just a design study right here. This is Deku in his kind of PE clothes when he goes to school. Large eyes, that's always the most obvious thing about the Japanese style. But one thing I did notice when I was going through My Hero Academia is very, very simple mouth and nose. The mouth and nose is very simple. The other thing that's very interesting is for a lot of the manga style, and I think it's kind of the same way, like even in Bleach, you can see it right here, and I think it's really apparent in One Piece, like you can see it right there. The ears are generally a little bit below the eye line. And the same is true here. So technically he's looking up, so the ears would be kind of tilted here. But even in a straightaway shot, when you look at Deku in this manga, his ears are usually a little bit below, and obviously on a straightaway, the ears are sticking out a lot more prominently in manga compared to like the American style. In the American style, everything is more naturalistic in its approach. So ears stick out, but they don't stick out that much. And depending on the character, the ears could be like just missing altogether for the most part. But yeah, no. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this character, and I was measuring it in different panels. Deku's about 7 heads tall, and that's an interesting design choice because that's a normal proportions, right? Obviously, he's young, so he shouldn't be very tall with respect to the rest of his body. But specifically, he's always made well below 8 or 9 heads tall, which is considered, our ideal or heroic proportions, right? So sticking with sort of the normal, being normal as a feature of the character, right? Very thin, no definitions, and one of the interesting things when I kind of looked at this design is it's kind of a great example of simple being good, right? Like this design can easily be drawn for whatever angles you want, and it's kind of one of the, I guess, ingenious inventions of the Japanese. Is they kind of, a lot of this is fundamentally derived from the Disney art style from way back in the days, but fundamentally it's easy to draw a lot of these figures in different perspective and different sort of poses and gesture and especially action, which is what manga is very famous for, because you don't have to necessarily over-render the holy hell out of this. Instead, the rendering is sort of saved for the backgrounds and the effects and the speed lines, which manga is very well known for. So yeah, sorry for blabbing. I wanted to kind of take a break from sequential art and make sure I wasn't losing any kind of inking skill, so I wanted to make sure that I could still ink. So I decided to do this real fast here, and it ended up being fun, but I'll be back to sequential art in the next review. Anyhow, that's the review. Let me know what you think. If you like this review, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments about My Hero Academia Volume 1, specifically the first chapter in it, which is Izuku Midoriya Origin, or this art, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.